But going into last night, Rodgers and Love's career numbers were exactly identical through that number of games, and Love is on the
Don't
upswing.
give me stats, bro. We talking about expectations.
Welcome into the fifth quarter. Claudette Montana, Robin Lundberg, and Dakota London here with you to break down some of the top storylines around the NFL. Guys, two of the best teams in the NFL, the Eagles and the Chiefs, both suffered losses on Sunday. So at this point, who do you think has the higher odds of making it to the Super Bowl, Robin?
Well, I'm going to go with the Chiefs, not because I don't think they have problems. Their offense has struggled this season. Their receivers have struggled this season. We've seen them get close in a lot of these games and not be able to finish them off. But their competition is not as strong as Philly's, in my opinion. Look at the Eagles' last game against the 49ers, who destroyed them. Look at the Eagles' next game against the Cowboys. If you were to tell me just to pick the three best teams in the NFL, I could make an argument. It is those three. San Francisco clearly looks like the best team in the NFL right now. Meanwhile, Kansas City does not have the same problem in the AFC. The Dolphins haven't beat a team over 500 in more than a calendar year. The Ravens aren't particularly explosive, though good. In fact, I think the biggest threat to the Chiefs might be the Bills, and they're flirting with not making the playoffs.
All valid points, but I'm definitely going to go Philly despite that pathetic performance they put forth against the 49ers. And my biggest argument is the number one seed. The Eagles could still end up winning the number one seed, even despite the loss of San Fran. They're still in first place. The Chiefs may not be the number one seed. They may have to play on the road in the playoffs. And yeah, you could say what you want about the Dolphins not having been a team that's better than 500 record, or Baltimore. You still want to see if they're really serious. But if they're at home against Kansas City, you feel good about that. Yes, defenses do travel. The problem is Kansas City can't score points. So if they got to outscore one of those teams, that's an issue. I think Philly, despite that loss, still has a really good chance of getting back to the Super Bowl. And if they get the number one seed, they potentially only have to beat one of those teams, either San Fran or Dallas. So they really just got to be able to beat one of them, and, they're back in the Super Bowl.
Well, two things on that real quick. One, we've seen the Chiefs do this, on an annual basis, win in the playoffs, so they have the pedigree. Two, after the Bills next week, their schedule is cake, so I'm not so sure they won't be the number one seed.
All right, well, speaking of Green Bay's win over Kansas City, we've got to give a little bit of love to Jordan Love. See what I did there? He threw for 267 yards, 3 touchdowns yesterday in the win. Dakota, is he the Packers' next great QB?
Maybe. And I think the benefit that he has is tempered expectations. When you think about Brett Favre, you think about Aaron Rodgers, the expectations of them were so high that they had to be great. He doesn't have to worry about that. I think unlike those other two quarterbacks, he's in an era where Detroit is probably seen as the best team of that division. That was never the case with the other two guys. So he gets to kind of just methodically improve and get better and better, and just show that maybe he is really that guy meant for them to take them to the promised land, since Rodgers hasn't done it since like 2011. But he's in a good situation. I'll leave it at that.
I won't say he had no expectations. Aaron Rodgers was mad that he was drafted in the first place. So he had to step up to the plate with Rodgers gone. If he fell flat on his face, it would be embarrassment to the entire franchise. Instead, it looks like the Packers made the right decision, bringing Love in and letting Rodgers move on. Because they're in a spot right now where they're likely to finish with a better record than they had with Rodgers last year. And Love has improved as the season has gone along. He has been dealing, both against the Lions and against the Chiefs, to the point that he does look like their next, at least, let's say, Pro Bowl-ish kind of QB.
But you're also being a prisoner of the moment, because in the early stages of the season, the Packers were not playing like that at all, and he did not look like the way he looks right now. So that just goes to my point. His expectations are tempered. They're dealing with Detroit in that division, where it's seen that, okay, Detroit is going to win that division probably by a landslide. So all he has to do is continue to improve. Rodgers and Favre didn't have to deal with that. And yes, even though Rodgers left and they were excited about what they hoped Jordan Love would be, they weren't expecting him to be Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was seen as like, oh my gosh, he might be the next best thing, despite the fact he sat for as long as he did.
But going into last night, Rodgers and Love's career numbers were exactly identical through that number of games, and Love is on the upswing.
Don't give me stats, bro. We're talking about expectations. Numbers are numbers. I'm talking about expectations. Jordan Love was never seen to be as talented as Aaron Rodgers was when he took over that team. And now he's in a situation where he can just gradually get better, and then we'll see where he is in the playoffs.
Well, Love actually looks pretty good right now.
All right, well, you know who also looked good yesterday was the Miami Dolphins. Dominant win for them over the Commanders, 45-15. Tyreek Hill helped lead the team to victory. He's on pace right now, guys, for a 2,000-yard season. So does he belong on the wide receiver Mount Rushmore, Robin?
I say yes. Tyreek Hill is one of the 4 greatest wide receivers I've ever seen play and is unique. I've never seen anyone as dangerous as he is, getting that kind of running start, his ability to beat you deep, his ability to get the yak, yards after the catch, just that speed, that hence the nickname Cheetah, as you see in the top left of that video right there. And his video highlights are explosive. If you're telling me who are the 4 best wide receivers I've ever seen, of course, the great Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, and Terrell Owens. And now I'm saying Tyreek Hill.
Bro, no, stop, please. Yo, that's so disrespectful. So disrespectful. I think Tyreek Hill is great, but you're not looking at the history of the league. I agree with your first 3. I think to me, those 3 are solidified. There's no question about it. But Tyreek Hill all time is not better than Calvin Johnson. As great as Tyreek Hill is, and I may make the argument that he may be more dangerous than Calvin by himself was the only threat for that Detroit team. And you're talking about that 2,000-yard season. You know whose record he has to break to get to that 2,000-yard season? Calvin Johnson's 1,964 receiving yards. That's the record that he got in 16 games. So before you start putting Tyreek on that Mount Rushmore, please show some respect to Megatron.
But look, you're arguing for me because whether he has already or not, he's about to pass Calvin Johnson.